Hello and welcome to Traditional Painting the Digital Way. This is where I use digital painting apps to teach traditional painting techniques. In this video series, we're going to be looking at the new brushes that have been added to Rebelle 4. Rebelle 4 basically began as a watercolor simulation program, and over the years and the past 3 versions, they've added a lot more brushes. They've added pencils and inks and acrylic paint, and this year in Rebelle 4 they added oil paint. And so I really wanted to take a look at this oil paint because it is very similar now to Art Rage 6, which has one of the best oil painting simulation programs out there, I think. And so here I'm just playing around with some of the new oil brushes, and there's several different kinds of brushes, flat brushes, round brushes, and they even have a knife, like it simulates a painting knife, and they have filbert brushes, and here you can just see that it feathers the paint out and makes it look very much like a real oil painting. And up till now, Corel Painter also has this function, but the best one that I have seen is Art Rage 6 for simulating acrylic or an oil paint look. Corel Painter does a good job too, but it is more complex, and it's a little bit harder to figure out how to get it to look like this. Although in their last version, it's getting a lot more simplified and getting a lot more user-friendly and sort of tablet-friendly. And that's what I'm running this program on right now, is my Surface Pro 5. And so here I'm just kind of seeing how you can blend the paint together. You can add how much water that you want. Now this is playing around with the acrylic paints, and they have rounds and flats and different looks, filbert brush, a liner brush, a knife brush, and they also give kind of a realistic look to the bristles on this one too. And you can use you can add the wetness shows how much water that you add to it, so you can make the paint really wet and make it look like it's like it's got a lot of water. And then the watercolor is the one that they mainly started out with in this program, and you can change the amount of water in it, the amount of paint, the opacity, the size, and you can make it even look like it's running down the paper, and it just does probably the best simulation of watercolor, I think, of any of the painting programs out there. Corel Painter is pretty good, and they've added a lot of different things that make it look pretty close to real watercolor as well. This one, I think, though, is a little bit simpler program. It's a little bit easier to do this in Rebelle 4 than it is in Corel Painter. But here I'm just showing that you can dry it, you can re-wet the paper, you can do several different kinds of brushes. They have round brushes and flat brushes, and when you turn the water all the way up, that makes it look like it's running down the page, and it makes it simulate drips, like if you were doing an actual traditional watercolor painting. And so here you can see that it starts to run down the page after a while, and you have to have a good processor in your tablet. You probably need an Intel i5 at least, or of course you can use this on your desktop computers and hook it up to a Wacom Cintiq or some sort of painting tablet as well. but you need a really good processor to handle this program. Although with Rebelle 4, I think it runs even smoother than the last 3 versions. And so here I'm just kind of playing around with the gouache brushes. They've actually added gouache. I think they may have added that in Rebelle 3 though. So they have a simulation for gouache. And of course you can add water to it too, because it's kind of like gouache is like a thick watercolor basically. And so they've got several different brushes for the gouache. It also has ink brushes, the Sumi ink brushes. And so you can add water to those as well. And here I'm just kind of showing how it dripped down. And you can show how the ink is how the ink drips down too. You can add lots of water on it, and it's got dry brush ink and several different kinds of things there. And as you can see there, my processor slowed down a little bit. So on some of these, the more water that you add, it might slow down your tablet a little bit. And so here I'm just showing how you can spray. They have several different scatter brushes, which is good because that simulates traditional painting. As a toothbrush, if you're splattering on a toothbrush on your canvas or something like that. And then it has a few shapes here. And then you can also change your UI and put it in a different order if you want to. And here I'm just kind of playing around with some of the finer tipped inks, and you can just add water as well to those. This program is probably the best for simulating water type of media. And see, as you can see, it looks like it's dripping down the page. And I'm just kind of adding some more ink strokes right here. You can make a pencil. You can make it look like it's doing pencil. And of course you can dry all the wet media underneath there, and all those controls are on the right of your screen. And you can also tilt the way the liquid runs down the canvas, and you can even make it run back up. And here I'm just kind of playing around with the pencils. And it has a pencil simulation look and a chalk pastels kind of look too. They've added all these, and they've added some dry media. And here I just started a new canvas. So we could see how some of the charcoals and things like that work. And you can see that they're pretty good. They actually mimic charcoal pretty well. Not as good maybe as Corel Painter or Art Rage. Art Rage has got a very good pencil and a graphite pencil that they've added there that really looks natural. But this is getting really close, and they've really improved these brushes and the look of the charcoal, and it's getting pretty naturalistic looking here. And you can also make it look like scratchboard and things like that. They've added that on there as well. And then they have sort of they have markers. You can make them look like markers. Now this is pastel brushes, and this is where you can add the color and make it look kind of like chalk pastels, or even kind of an oil pastel maybe. And then here I've got the markers, and I would say that if you wanted to look for markers, probably Autodesk Sketchbook would be the best one for the Copic look of markers, but this one's pretty good. And it has spray paint. Here they've added a spray paint, and that looks pretty naturalistic. And you can go ahead and use stencils with this. This is something I think they added in Rebelle 3. So you can actually make your own stencils, or you can use some of the stencils that they have. And here you just can use that spray paint and just kind of spray over it, and it comes out the stencil look there. And you can go ahead and search through your files, and they have a reference image. So you can actually, this is a reference image window, and I think they added this in Rebelle 3, which I was really happy that they added, because I always want a reference image window. It's just really helpful. So here I'm just kind of playing around with some more of the watercolor there, and showing how you can make the water just run. You can put it in the mode where you can see all the wet media there. And so the lighter blue is where all the wet media is on your page, and the rest of it is dry. And then you can, of course, you can hit the button and make everything dry. The buttons are on the right side of the UI there, under the layers there, and you can re-wet the paper, make it dry, and do several different things. And so I'm just kind of playing around with it here, and trying to show how you can make the paint run. And you can get all kinds of really neat effects doing that. And then here I wanted to play around with the oil brushes again, because that's what they added new in Rebelle 4. And as you can see, they really do mimic an oil brush. And so I thought I would see what happens if I made it wet. And so I went ahead and tapped on the wet icon there and added the oiliness. And so it's kind of like adding linseed oil or turpentine to your oil paint there. And as you can see, it does also run. And you can see it here as it runs down the page and drips. And it really does a good job of simulating wet media here. And so you can go ahead and do that with your oil paint. If you want to make like a drippy style of oil paint, you can do that. Or you can just leave it dry and make it look really thick, or with a dry brush here. And that sort of mimics the dry brush effect that you can get with using a bristle brush when you're painting traditionally. And then here I was just playing around with the water again, trying to see if I could make it run and what it would do there. And it works really neat. You can do some really neat effects with this program. And this is kind of something that you can't do in any of the other digital painting programs, at least not quite as easy or as well. So this is the end of my part 1 look at the new brushes in Rebelle. And in part 2, I'm going to try to show you how to do an oil painting and see how well it does. So if you want to see that, stick around and hit the subscribe button. Thanks everybody for watching. Thank you so much for your support. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments down below, and I will catch you later.